Did you know that cockroaches are able to survive a nuclear blast? What about this salamander that can regenerate every single body part? You might hear more about this later, but first let's look at the octopus. Some people think that eating live octopus tentacles is a delicacy. We think it's just cruel. The only thing we're wondering at that moment is how do those tentacles move? For example, even when you sever the head of an octopus, the tentacles continue to move all on their own. Does this mean that the octopus is a zombie? Nope, it's just a survival trait. The octopus is a very smart creature, and because it only has few defensive mechanisms at its disposal, the only thing it can really do is flee, and the moving arms help. You see, when a large predator rips off one of the octopus tentacles, the tentacle keeps moving. This is because the brain of the octopus runs along the length of each octopus arm. This way, the predator will try to fight the severed tentacle while the octopus gains plenty of time to escape. Don't worry, fellas, the octopus can regrow the tentacle in just 100 to 130 days. Flies. If octopuses can lose limbs, flies can lose their head and survive. That's right, they can survive a long time without a head. Since flies are fairly simple animals, most of the bodily functions are not regulated by the brain, and the only reason a fly needs its head is for feeding. If a female fly is decapitated, this still won't deter the males from courting her. Have you ever seen these frozen fly magic tricks? Of course you have. You see, they have this innate ability to withstand freezing temperatures. However, they're immobile during this time. If you hold them in your hand for about a minute, your body heat will transfer onto the fly and the insect will spring back to life. Because that's what we need more of. Flies. Lobster. One of the little-known animals that can forever regenerate its body is the lobsters. Thanks to an enzyme called telomerase, the lobster can rejuvenate its DNA almost indefinitely. The reason they aren't immortal is because of their shells. You see, every time a lobster regenerates their DNA, it grows a little bigger. The problem is that their shells stay the same size. Sure, they can regrow their tails, but there's a problem. Growing a larger and larger shell every time requires a lot of energy. After a certain size, the lobster succumbs to shell collapse on exhaustion. Cockroaches. Scientists are claiming that cockroaches are one of the few, if not the only insects in the animal kingdom that can survive a nuclear blast. It's been pointed out that the body of a cockroach can withstand radiation levels 15 times higher than a human. Also, it's proven they can live even after smashing that like button, just like you should do if you haven't done so already. But no, in all seriousness, they can live after their heads are sliced cleanly off their body. To be fair, unlike humans, their heads don't hold one of the most important organs in the body. Plus, they can breathe through these small tubes all over their body called the trachea. So the only reason they would need a head is for eating and drinking. But it's been proven that a cockroach can survive about 3 months without food, 1 month without water, and about 4 minutes without air. So if something were to happen to the head of the cockroach, it still has another month or so before it dies. Praying mantis. It's commonly known that mantises partake in an act called sexual cannibalism. What's that? Well, after intercourse, it's commonly known as the female will eat the male mantis. We agree it's weird, but not as weird as inseminating the female after death. Wait, what? Well, sometimes in the passion that comes with copulation, the female will eat the male before the ritual is complete. But strangely enough, it's been said that the male can still inseminate the female after death. Hydra. A hydra has a tubular body, and at the end, there's a mouth with several tentacles coming out of it. They're very similar to jellyfish. In fact, they're grouped in the same phylum called Cnidaria. Now folks, listen up. The hydra never even goes through the aging process. It's forever young and forever virile, thanks to a special set of genes called the FOXO genes. To test the hydra, scientists stopped these FOXO genes from functioning, and they found out that the aging process was back in full force. Also, their regenerative capacity diminished. Chickens. They called him Mike, born in 1945, and he was a chicken whose head was chopped off but still survived for an incredible 18 months after that. How is that even possible? Well, the brain inside the chicken's head is pushed in the back, and in the front there are 2 large cavities for the eyes. If cut right above the eye at an angle, the animal's brains remain intact. This is how Mike survived for so long. Lucky for Mike, the butcher also missed its jugular vein. During the 18 months alive after death, they used a small pipette to feed Mike with a mixture of milk and water. Bees. Even though biologists like to talk about the hive mind, and the solidarity among bees, the brutal truth is that worker bees are nothing but disposable soldiers for the colony. They gather nectar, pollinate, and defend the base. Speaking of, the only real defense mechanism they have against is their stinger. Be honest, who hasn't felt the pain? This stinger acts like a screw anchor. Both the stinger and the small amount of venom involuntarily sting anything that tries to touch the bees. But wait a second, didn't bees die after they sting you? Yes, they do, and this is precisely why we included them in the list. You see, if you ever see a dead bee, be careful about touching it. Remember that we said the stinger lodges itself involuntarily into the flesh of a predator? Well, even if the bee has already died, it can still sting you. Shingleback skink. This is one of the weirdest lizards in the world. Why? Because it can launch its tail in the air like a rocket. It's not a joke. This is the only survival mechanism this lizard has, and that's why it's so extraordinary. If you look closely, you will see that the tail of the lizard resembles its head. When a predator approaches, the skink will form into a C shape, and the predator will be confused as to which head to attack. If it goes for the tail, it's all good. The lizard will live. If, however, the predator goes for the head, the shingleback skink will launch its tail straight at the predator like a projectile. While the enemy is confused, the skink has enough time to escape.
Top 3.
Salamander. The story of the salamander's unique ability to regenerate all of its limbs and some of the vital organs starts back in the time of the ancient Aztec civilization. They had a legend about a monstrous dog that guarded the sun god and then turned into a salamander to escape certain death. Why salamander? Probably because people knew about the regenerative powers of this animal, and scientists today are studying the stem cells that salamanders produce, hoping to find the key to fast regeneration. The salamander is able to regenerate whole body parts. For example, if one of its limbs is severed, it can regrow it very quickly. If you crush or completely cut off the spinal cord of a salamander, it regrows without a problem. And the thing craziest of all, salamanders have the ability to regenerate the front portion of their brain as well as a third of the heart. A small puncture to our heart and we'll be faced with incessant bleeding and eventually death. Not the salamander. This weird-looking creature can actually function with 1/3 of its heart gone. Snakes. For anyone that's handling a decapitated snake, just stay away from it. First of all, the body will twist and contort and even strike at you if you get close enough. And yes, all of this while the head is separated from the rest of the body. This post-mortem movement is caused by the pain of chopping off the animal's body part. The body might be harmless, but there was a chef in China that decapitated a spitting cobra. He went to cook it 20 minutes after the decapitation, and the snake's head sprung to life and bit him, killing the man instantly with a powerful venom. While there are numerous instances of dead snakeheads biting people, most of them didn't end fatally. Still sounds like a zombie snake to me. The immortal jellyfish. This small jellyfish is immortal. It's true. Just like any other medusa, their life cycle begins with a fertilized egg. This fertilized egg will grow into a planula. Then after the planula comes a stage called the benthic polyps. The polyps turn into ephrae, and this later turns into a jellyfish. For many jellyfish, the only life cycle left after this is death. But not for the immortal jellyfish. They revert back to the planula stage and the cycle starts all over again. Interestingly enough, scientists are studying them extensively, hoping these animals hold the key to immortality. This is Koala with Koality Content. See you soon. YouTube thinks that you should watch this video.